tonight. New information on the King beating. Black officers speak out against racism. The future of law and order in Los Angeles. Next on Policing the Police.
Real talk, serious thought. True and living with a youthful vengeance, yeah.
Trust me, I'm as live as it gets.
At times I feel like my back's against the wall, and if y'all ain't with me, then it's me against y'all. I stand my ground, that's what I was taught. While others stand around, I hold it down like a fort. In the midst of war, I find peace within. Run, lock your doors, don't let the beast get in. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. I show love cause it's a terrible thing to hate. Of course I want money, but I won't compromise. Y'all don't realize, think I won't bomb you guys with the truth, nigga. Stop misleading the youth, nigga. Too many wakes and funerals, that's the proof, nigga. Our hood's in danger, kids need guidance. You keep lying, still the young keep dying. As I walk through the valley, I fear none. Yes, I'm the chairman, here with my nigga Premier, son. And we came to change the game. We represent the pain, that's real talk. What's your claim to fame? Rappers simply tracing flows and chasing hoes. Frontin' mad hard, that shit's amazing, yo. Producers making Tinkerbell beats for them to rhyme on. They ask if they get on the same stage that I'm on. Our shit be rugged like the New York streets. Make the wrong move, stupid, then you lose your seat. Catch me buying up sound scans to beef up sales. Niggas wanna cross over, wanna be upscale. Fuck that, that ain't hip-hop, it's something else. You better off back on the Ave doing something else. All you suckers claiming that you are thug or gangster, you disrespect the game by dry snitching, you prankster. I thank you for making more room for us. Ashes to dust, you wonder who's to trust. My sense of self and my mental health is much more powerful than any hint of wealth. A lot of niggas get cash and collect Mercedes, but neglect their ladies and forget their babies. Then the chicks turn and act like dudes, cause they reflect our life. So yo, act right, fool. And this is just a piece of my mind, a thesis of mine. I'ma make moves and I'ma leave you behind. At times I feel like my back's against the wall, and if y'all ain't with me, then it's me against y'all. I stand my ground, that's what I was taught. While others stand around, I hold it down like a fort. In the midst of war, I find peace within. Run, lock your doors, don't let the beast get in. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. I show love cause it's a terrible thing to hate.
Trust me, I'm as live as it gets. My flow is like live as it gets. Trust me, I'm as live as it gets. Trust me, I'm as live. My flow is like live as it gets.
Simply on the face of it, the specter of racism in the beating of Rodney King seems apparent. An unarmed black man clubbed and stomped by white police officers. The scene evokes memories of Jim Crow justice or the abuse of South African apartheid. But beyond the obvious, there is more. We have had the audio portion of the tape enhanced by an expert. Dr. George Papson, a nationally recognized audio specialist, removed a portion of the helicopter sound. The words are hard to distinguish, but it is now evident that during the beating, a racial slur was yelled out. Replaying the tape, the audio reveals the commands, "Nigger, hands behind your back. Hands behind your back. Behind your back." Before and after the beating, racist messages went back and forth on computer screens in police cars. Just prior to the incident, a note from Officer Lawrence Powell, who was charged in the King beating, referred to a family dispute as right out of Gorillas in the Mist. A response mocking black English came back from another officer, Karina Smith, who wasn't at the scene. "Ha ha ha ha, let me guess who be the parties." After the King beating, Sergeant Stacy Kuhn, one of those charged in the beating, radioed to the station, "Unit just had a big-time use of force." The reply, "Oh well, I'm sure the lizard didn't deserve it. Ha ha." After beating King, officers took him to the emergency room at Pacifica Hospital in Sun Valley. One of the nurses there, Lawrence Davis, told the grand jury that he heard the officers taunting King. "We played a good game of hardball tonight, and you lost the ball game, didn't you?" Davis also testified there were some racial slurs. It was something like, "This nigger," something or other. On March 15th, 3 officers, Powell, Timothy Wind, and Theodore Briseño, as well as Sergeant Kuhn, were indicted on charges of assault. All 4 have pleaded not guilty. Kuhn and Powell also pleaded innocent to 1 count of filing a false police report. In their report, they contended that Rodney King attacked them.
Do you remember resisting at all or trying to get away? Striking back?
No. You wouldn't. It wouldn't strike back. I don't think no one would strike back against 4 or 5 guns.
Nowhere was the outrage over Rodney King's beating more fervently expressed than in LA's black community.
I don't come here today to say that all police officers are bad. I come to say that too many of them are bad if there's one too bad.
Again and again, people we spoke to said the only thing that surprised them about the King beating was that it was videotaped.
It's no one getting beat but the blacks. No one getting beat but the blacks. You stop, like they say, a white man in a Mercedes. He never get beat. It's just the blacks.
This type of thing happens all the time to the black youth in Los Angeles. It happened to me before, not as severe. I was struck like 3 times by a police officer when I was up at Cal State Northridge. I'm a college student.
I have a lot of friends in the black community. Great number of friends in the black community. Very difficult for them to come forward, but I think they will.
We are stronger than Daryl Gates and his public relations machine.
But so far, most of those coming forward from minority communities have been critics. They have a long history of grievances and complain that racism in the LAPD goes back generations. In the 1920s, there was a fixed quota for black officers. No more than 100 were allowed to serve. For years, black cops could work only in black communities. And not until the 60s were black police officers allowed to ride in patrol cars with white officers. Today, 49% of Los Angeles police officers are minorities. That comes close to the racial makeup of the city. But most non-white police officers are concentrated in the lower ranks. According to police statistics, of the 323 police officials who hold the rank of lieutenant and above, 272 are white. That's 84% of the brass. Disturbed about what they believe is racial discrimination in promotions, as well as other concerns about racism at the LAPD, minority officers are now speaking out in unprecedented numbers.
My name is Garland Hardiman, and my rank is Police Officer 3, which is a training officer, and I've been with the department almost 9 years.
We have spoken to over 30 minority officers, mostly blacks.
My name is Bob Marshall. I'm a Police Officer 3 with the Los Angeles Police Department, and I've been employed with the department for approximately 11 years.
Okay, my name is Kevin Williams. I'm a detective. I've been on the job 6 years.
Few critics who are police officers dared to go on camera for fear of retribution, but all repeat the same concerns.
My name is Edward Williams, and I work at Pacific Division. I've been in LAPD for 10 years, and I'm also a Police Officer 3, and I'm a training officer.
My name is Janine Bouet, and I'm a patrol officer. I work the streets, and I've been on for 4.5 years.
They say that racism is tolerated by the LAPD's management.
I've been on LAPD for 6 years.
And so we choose Officer Carl L. McGill as our person of the week.
Officer Carl McGill has earned national recognition for his gang expertise, but he says he can't get promoted.
I'm probably the most recognized officer on the department dealing with gangs, nationally and internationally, but I don't get the opportunity's not there for me.
And you believe that's because
yes, definitely. And everybody else believes it also. There is a lot of discrimination as far as job selections and promotions because of we don't control the power structure of the department or have any influence.
Many officers complain that minorities can get temporary assignments to the more popular jobs, but lose out on permanent positions.
The bureau calls down, and that's either the commander or deputy chief, called down to crash because we had a plethora of black officers. And he says, we need officers to buy. Send some down to South Bureau Narcotics.
To make undercover narcotics buys.
To make undercover buys. So I went, I thought it'd be a good idea. When they need me, they could get me, or some other black officer. But if you want the position, you can't have it, because those are choice positions.
I have gone for sergeant oral before and received very low scores. And I know that I speak very well in public, that I've been elected to a public office in another city, that I have a master's degree, I hope to get a law degree soon, that there's no way that I could go in and score low 80s, middle 80s on an oral board when people who stutter and have a GED in their educational level get 95s and 96s. To me, that's discriminatory. And it happens like a stealth bomber. You know, that's the kind of racism that you don't see, because they can use many other things to cover it up.
Such concerns about racism recently prompted the state of California to formally accuse the Los Angeles Police Department of discriminatory promotions practices. Lawyers for black and Latino police officers have made the same complaints in lawsuits.
When the state agency following our charges looked into it, what they found was that the selection rates for the sergeant, detective, and lieutenant ranks among minorities is a fraction of the selection rate for Anglo officers.
I believe that LAPD has operated on an good old boys network, which has excluded Latino and black officers over the last 10 to 15 years. And that is the purpose of filing the charges of discrimination, to try and educate the management at the police department to try and break down those barriers.
But when you look at the statistics and you look at what the state has found, as a matter of statistical analysis, it can't be faults of the individual.
LAPD Sergeant Al Ruvalcaba is a vice president of the Latin American Law Enforcement Association, LALE.
LALE's position in this, and most of its members, they have absolutely no trouble waiting in line for that position. And they don't mind that. And they'll wait in line just like everybody else. But what they don't like is when somebody butts in and gets a position.
Besides the issue of promotions, minority officers also charge they've been subjected to or have overheard racist abuse and insults. Often attitudes are formed early during training at the police academy. It was here in 1987 where Officer Janine Bowie says she got a shocking warning from a supervisor.
He said, Bowie, he said, do you know who the most discriminated people are on this department? And I said, black? And he said, you're half right. I said, what do you mean, sir? And he said, well, he said, you're half right, black females. He said, look at you, you can pass for anything that you want to. He said, you have black down. He said, really, you need to change that. He said, or you're going to find you're going to have a hard way to go.
Was he right?
Yeah, he was right.
Bowie says that during her first night on the job at the Foothill Division, she was patrolling a housing project with a partner.
And my partner said, look at that tar buddy running across the projects. And I said, what? I had never heard that term before, and I really didn't know what he was talking about. And he said, you know, tar buddy, that nigger. He didn't realize that I was black.
As a black officer, you see it almost everywhere you turn. Sometimes you see it as clear as I saw it in Southeast Locker Room, which is a division of the Los Angeles Police Department, in bold black spray-painted letters, the word nigger written there, where several black officers had their lockers.
When?
This was in 1983.
What happened as a result of that?
Actually, nothing. They painted the walls, and that was the end of that.
The officer who gave me this notice was a female officer who came on the department with that, as I did.
What's the story on that?
Well, she said that she was going through a file cabinet in South Bureau of Traffic, and she discovered this statement which says, subject, seagulls, effective immediately. Negroes are no longer to be called niggers or jigs, but seagulls. They cruise all night, they squawk all day, they shit on everybody, and are protected by the federal government.
And where was this?
And this was found in a filing cabinet inside South Bureau of Traffic where she worked.
This racist caricature was left on the desk of another black officer on 4 separate occasions. 2 black officers say that in 1989 they received KKK material at the Foothill Station.
I had heard a lot of things about discrimination and racism within the division, and when I started making complaints about it, it was after that that I received my first KKK card. And what happened was I was working with a P1, a probationer, a black officer, and he brought the card downstairs and he said, "Here, I think this is for you. I found this propped against my locker." And I asked him, I said, why do you think that's for me? He said, "Because I haven't made any complaints about racism. You have. I'm sure this is for you." I was put on morning watch shortly after, and after getting off of work, I went to my car, and my car was parked in a police secure parking facility behind the station, and I had another identical card under my windshield wiper on my vehicle.
And this was in a secure parking lot?
This was, the only people that can get in there are police officers.
After the King beating, the KKK sent membership applications to LA police divisions. A KKK spokesman boasted 50 officers had responded and a handful had submitted applications, but this could not be verified.
Well, as long as we continue to hire human beings, there are going to be people who foster racism internally, and unfortunately some of those people bring it to work.
Echoing common citizen complaints, minority police officers we interviewed said that often non-whites stopped by police are subjected to a form of street justice.
Officer Hardeman, was the King beating an aberration?
No, it's not an aberration. I mean, I've told you of incidents that I've seen or witnessed and brought to the attention of the supervisor, things that I've experienced myself off duty where I've been stopped and I've been humiliated by my own department and been treated like I was a suspect and tried to complain about it and nothing was done.
I worked Van Nuys Division, which basically is a predominantly white community, and I've seen traffic stops, a lot of traffic stops, matter of fact, just about all the traffic stops where the citizens were given a lot of courtesy and a lot of respect as far as being able to understand why they're being stopped and so forth.
White citizens in the
right,
yeah.
in Van Nuys and Sherman Oaks area and so forth. But in South Central Los Angeles and predominantly black communities, and I see a lot of, I guess there's a fear amongst the officers. You're in the area where you're not really comfortable, and a citizen has to put their hands on the car while they're getting a traffic ticket.
I had an incident just last year involving a black suspect who had ran and was captured by me and my partners. And this white officer who was chasing him, after we had already handcuffed him and had him cuffed, had him proned out, which is face down,
yeah.
and his legs were spread wide open, which is our policy,
right.
while we're searching him. And he comes right behind us and kicks the guy right in the groin area. Kicked him so hard to the point where it caused the guy to throw up. I've been on many incidences where we've had white suspects and they were not kicked in the groin, especially when the guy is handcuffed.
Police representatives admit there is probably more force used in minority communities, but they say there's a good reason for that. Clifford Ruff is a director of the Police Protective League.
I think that in the black community, people see more police use of force because there's a higher rate of violent crime in the black community, and that's supported by statistics. And so there is a perception that the police use more force than they would normally see in an Anglo community or the Hispanic community, and it's understandable that black citizens would have this perception. But I think that the police department goes well out of its way in its effort to maintain strong community relations.
Many minority police officers disagree. A racial incident that allegedly took place in this Marina del Rey parking lot is one of several personal experiences cited by officers.
I was off duty and was leaving this nightclub with some other friends, and perhaps there was a shooting in the parking lot, and after we came out of the club, I guess the officers were responding to this call, but it was 30 minutes after the call was over, and our car was blocking the officer's path. And as we were pulling out of the, trying to get out of his way, one of the officers that I used to train stuck his head out the window and called me a nigger. Told us to get our fucking cars out of the way. Niggers.
Yeah, racism is a problem. It's a problem not only in our department, it's a problem nationwide. I think that the Rodney King incident and it being brought forth was a golden opportunity for those people who have felt, okay, I can't say anything, I can't say anything. If they don't realize that this is the chance for them to come out and speak against problems, then they've missed the boat totally.
if in fact Daryl Gates wants to show strong leadership, then he must commend officers such as myself and Officer Williams and Kevin Williams for having come forth and stated the problems to him if in fact he was ever unaware of them to begin with. And then he needs to step forward and ask us, how do you see us resolving these problems? Because we have some solutions for him. And I think that if the chief listens to this message, he's not going to hear, get rid of Chief Gates. He's not going to hear LAPD is a bad department. He's going to hear officers who are concerned about the department that has provided good career kind of options for them, that has some serious problems and has created some serious roadblocks for people that we want to correct.
1930 Los Angeles, a city that promised opportunity, especially for the well-connected. Politicians were on the take, so were the police. For the right amount of money, you could buy police protection. You could even buy a job on the force.
Bribes were everyday affairs. It was a different city then than it is today.
In the 40s, a reform movement forced some changes, but internal corruption continued. In 1948, William Wharton, a retired Marine Corps general, took over as chief and began to beef up discipline. In 1950, the chief's job went to a Wharton protege, William H. Parker. Parker rebuilt the force.
Saturday, April 9th, 7:48 p.m. An immediate meeting was called by Chief of Police W.H. Parker. It was over at 8:05. Present at the meeting were District Attorney S. Ernest Roll, Chief of Detectives Thad Brown, from the Division of Occurrence, Lieutenant Ruiz, Commander 77th Street Division, Captain R.A. Lorman, Homicide Division, the working team out of Homicide, Sergeants Jack Gotch and William Tilden, Captain James E. Hamilton, Intelligence Division.
Dragnet, the 1954 movie and TV series, illustrated the Parker model, a strict, no-nonsense, military-style chain of command. A style that was impersonal and arrest-conscious. And Parker introduced a new method of law enforcement. He took officers off the street and put them into radio-equipped squad cars on round-the-clock preventive patrols. These patrols were welcomed in white areas, but often resented in minority communities, according to Cal State history professor Martin Schiesel.
It was intended to deter crime. The assumption was made by the people in the squad car is that if you saw a group of young black people, they must have been involved in crime. They've committed a crime or something like that. So what had happened was, I think, is that by the end of the 1950s, I think what it really became was almost like perpetual harassment.
Stories of police brutality appeared regularly in the black press. In 1952, nationally famous blues singer Jimmy Witherspoon claimed the police beat him up. The Witherspoon incident led to public hearings before the Police Commission. That's the civilian panel that oversees the LAPD. Witnesses at that hearing echoed charges that can still be heard today, that the police department didn't take citizens' complaints seriously. Chief Parker turned aside a request to have the Police Commission oversee the complaint process. In 1957, a black woman suffered a miscarriage after police kicked her in the stomach. Incidents like this prompted the NAACP and the American Civil Liberties Union to call for a civilian review board. Chief Parker said a review board would threaten the professional autonomy of the police.
The most disastrous and the worst riot in the history of Los Angeles County.
August 1965. Years of tension culminated in the Watts riots. They raged on for 6 days. In the end, 34 were killed, over 1,000 wounded. Property damage exceeded $40 million. Chief Parker blamed the violence on political instigators.
A great deal of the courage that these rioters possessed was based upon the continuous attacks by their civil rights organizations upon the police, and the constant harassment, police brutality, police brutality, police brutality, and the attempt of the police to accommodate to the situation that gave them the sense that we have these people on the run now. We don't have to really fear the police very much because they're in a defensive position. Now, in addition to that, you have this, what I call political pandering, where they're constantly trying to reach these groups for political balance of power by catering to their emotions.
Governor Edmund G. Brown named former CIA Director John McCone to head up a probe of the riots. Also on the McCone Commission, Warren Christopher, who now chairs the independent commission investigating police practices in the wake of the Rodney King beating. Sam Williams, who now serves on the Police Commission, was a McCone Commission attorney. The commission heard testimony from over 500 witnesses. In its final report, the commission recognized the need to address severe social and economic problems in the ghetto. Regarding the police, the commission recorded considerable testimony alleging police brutality. One witness, then City Council member Tom Bradley, said the police had no adequate machinery for a person making a complaint. Despite the testimony, the McCone Commission absolved the police of any wrongdoing.
In their report, it was entitled Violence in the City, what they concluded is that the problem with the Los Angeles Police Department was a question of misunderstanding, not mistreatment, and they simply did not see any pattern of systematic and recurrent brutality. And the evidence indicates that since the late 1950s it was there.
To improve police relations with the community, the McCone Commission issued 4 recommendations. First, the city should strengthen the police commission, and second, the commission should appoint an inspector general to oversee complaints. These first 2 recommendations were ignored. John Ferraro was president of the Los Angeles Police Commission in 1965. He is now LA City Council president.
Maybe they felt that there was no need for that because we have pretty good procedures. We have the Internal Affairs Department of the Police Department, which reviews complaints and can make charges. And there's, as the chief pointed out last week, there's a lot of border rights, which is like a court-martial for the police department. And those are taken very seriously.
The McCone Commission also suggested the police expand community relations programs and hire more minority officers. In time, the LAPD acted on the last 2 recommendations. Community programs were instituted, and more blacks and Latinos were brought onto the force. But social problems, as well as allegations of police brutality, continued. In the late 1960s, black anger materialized in the form of the Black Panther Party. Oakland-based Black Panther leader Huey Newton echoed the feelings of many black residents in Los Angeles.
Because we're used, we're brutalized, the police in our community occupy our area, our community as a foreign troop occupies territory. And the police are there not to, in our community, not to promote our welfare or for our security and our safety, but they're there to contain us, to brutalize us and murder us.
The Black Panthers and police mistreatment of minorities became an issue in the 1969 mayoral race. In a runoff, Sam Yorty defeated Tom Bradley, in part by trying to link Bradley to black extremists. 1978, the Los Angeles Times quoted black leaders who viewed the police in Watts as an occupying army. In a letter to the editor, the newly appointed chief, Daryl Gates, said policing South Central Los Angeles requires an aggressive effort. January 3, 1979, 2 police officers gunned down Eula Love after she threatened them with a kitchen knife. Police commission hearings determined the officers made serious errors in judgment, and further hearings concluded that the police were not responsive to minority needs. In the late 1980s, gang violence escalated. The police declared war.
And we will do everything in our power to put the gang members where they belong, and that's in jail, off the street.
In Operation Hammer, over 1,000 officers swept through South Central Los Angeles, arresting over 600 people. Only half were affiliated with gangs. While many applauded the crackdown, others complained the police were again going too far. Images from George Holliday's videotape are etched in the public's mind, but most people don't know the rest of Holliday's story.
The next day was Monday and we had to go to work, and I got up early and we called the local police department, Foothill Division.
George Holliday, the man who shot the videotape from his apartment balcony, says he intended to offer police the footage, but when he started to report possible police misconduct, the conversation came to an abrupt end.
Told them that I was a neighbor, that I had seen some policemen hitting an individual Sunday morning very early, right across the street from my house. She didn't ask me for any information, and she just told me, we don't give out any information. And by the tone of the voice and the way she said it, that was the end of the conversation. We just hung up.
So Holliday turned to the media. He sold the footage to a local TV station.
If they would have used me, asked me, well, what did you see, and gone on from there, they wouldn't have gotten all this bad publicity that they've got.
Holliday's frustration with the police complaint system is all too common, say critics. We have learned of a case that illustrates the problem, one involving Lawrence Powell, one of the officers charged in the King beating. 3 youths claim Powell mistreated them at this Pacoima gas station 2 weeks prior to the King beating. They say their efforts to report the incident were rebuffed by the department. On February 19th, 3 African-American college students were involved in an altercation with a white couple. Lawrence Powell was one of the foothill officers who responded.
He told me to get on my knees, and I told him that I got hurt in my leg. And then all of a sudden, he just like, shut up, stop lying. And I felt like the billy club hit me in my back, and then he kicked me on the back of my legs and made me fall to the ground.
2 of the students, who asked us not to use their names, claim Powell forced them to the ground, handcuffed them, and subjected them to racial slurs.
Officer Powell asked one of the ladies that was with us, is that nigger with you? Is that how you ladies call it? Is that nigger your man? Is that spick? And she was like in a maze, like, what are you trying to say?
The students claim that while they were handcuffed and briefly detained, the white couple was let go. They say they went to the Foothill police station the following day to report it, but the desk sergeant would not take a formal complaint.
They never did take my complaint. They didn't treat me bad. They just treat me like they didn't really want to hear it, and that they would listen to what I had to say so I can, and they told me anything to get me out of there.
Police are now investigating the matter, but the students say it's because of repeated phone calls and publicity over Rodney King. Danny Bakewell, president of the Brotherhood Crusade, says the community has little confidence in the system.
Certainly there's been a demoralizing attitude that has engulfed the African American community that says, why should I take the time to file this complaint? They're not going to do anything about it. I mean, I'm going to be filing a complaint against a police officer, to a police officer, that's going to be investigated by a police officer.
The first step in the complaint procedure is usually at the division office. Sergeant Mike Fanning told reporter Jeffrey Kaye that that is where most complaints against officers are filed.
Most complaints are investigated in the division of occurrence, providing that they don't involve officers from more than one division. Rule of thumb is that Internal Affairs Division takes on investigations that involve officers known to be from more than one division.
A small portion of the complaints are investigated by the Internal Affairs Division headquartered at Parker Center. Penalties for sustained complaints range from admonitions to suspensions to firings. If a suspension exceeding 22 working days is recommended, the officer can appeal the decision at a Board of Rights hearing.
You have a right to be present when board members examine your departmental personal history and records.
LA Police Chief Daryl Gates reviews most disciplinary cases.
The officer says that the suspect swung a foot at him.
Police records show citizens filed 566 complaints against LAPD officers during 1990. Out of the 166 charges of excessive force, only 5 were found to have merit. Most of the sustained complaints were for administrative violations, such as unauthorized use of a Xerox machine.
If you believe you have been a victim of any type of police abuse, you should contact the Police Misconduct Lawyer Referral Service at 213.
And then they made you lie face down on the ground?
Calls to this lawyer referral hotline have doubled since the King incident. 2 working days is recommended. The officer can appeal the decision at a Board of Rights hearing.
You have a right to be present when board members examine your departmental personal history and records.
LA Police Chief Daryl Gates reviews most disciplinary cases.
The officer says that the suspect swung a foot at him.
Police records show citizens filed 566 complaints against LAPD officers during 1990. Out of the 166 charges of excessive force, only 5 were found to have merit. Most of the sustained complaints were for administrative violations, such as unauthorized use of a Xerox machine.
If you believe you have been a victim of any type of police abuse, you should contact the Police Misconduct Lawyer Referral Service at 213.
And then they made you lie face down on the ground?
Calls to this lawyer referral hotline have doubled since the King incident. Counselors say they are now handling 50 calls a day. This independent lawyer referral service advises citizens on how to file police misconduct complaints. Counselors say they too often take complaints against repeat offenders. Executive Director Carol Heppy claims filing the complaint at the station where the officer works is one of the main problems.
Feel that it doesn't serve any purpose except the police department's purpose is to cover their own back when there's violations on the streets, because you have the first part of the complaint goes, the citizen's complaint goes to the division of where the officer is employed. It's investigated by fellow officers. These are usually friends of theirs investigating complaints against them.
But many officers claim complaints are fully investigated. Sergeant Pam Roberts says many officers feel they're too closely scrutinized.
In the places that I've worked, misconduct in any sense of the word is investigated fully. I think sometimes even as officers we think we're scrutinized too much, and some of our freedoms or rights are taken from us, and we feel as though we don't have as many rights as citizens in the field.
Tom Beck, an attorney who specializes in police misconduct cases, says only a small percentage of officers are ever disciplined, even if the city pays off a civil lawsuit on a police officer.
It's possible that he lost a lawsuit for brutality, that the city paid off a lawsuit for brutality or some other act of misconduct, corruption or dishonesty. And his rating reports will never disclose that.
Officer rating reports and personnel files are confidential, but public records show the city of LA paid out over $35 million the last 10 years for judgments and awards due to officer misconduct. Another way to discipline officers is through the criminal justice system. Lawyer Beck says the district attorney's office rarely prosecutes police officers for brutality.
We have physical evidence, videotaped evidence, even better than the King case because it's closer and it's in color, of a person being seriously choked out, being struck repeatedly with a baton, where the person is not offering any resistance.
In this incident, police from the city of Torrance were called to quell a fight at a party. Officers beat and choked a bystander. The city ended up paying out $105,000 to settle a lawsuit brought by the victim.
Notwithstanding the commission of 2 serious felonies in that case, the district attorney declined to file criminal charges against those officers on the grounds that there was insufficient evidence to secure a conviction. I find that absurd, and that is another illustration of what I mean by the DA being in bed with the police agencies. They are not independent, and the Torrance case is just a good example of it, but it occurs over and over in other times and places.
A spokesman from the Los Angeles District Attorney's Office said prosecutors were too busy to comment on these allegations, and he said they also didn't have time to compile statistics on the number of police officers they have prosecuted.
There needs to be a civilian review board that in fact can monitor and follow up on complaint and abuses that are registered to have happened by the Los Angeles Police Department. You need some, and that body, in my opinion, has to have a unit attached to it that is not accountable for the investigation, that is not accountable to the Los Angeles Police Department.
As far as how we are qualified, or best qualified to investigate one another, is that we have in-house institutional knowledge about the whys and the wherefores and all of the nuances of what goes on out on the street.
There are certain situations when dealing with a criminal element that is constantly out there, such as gang members and stuff like that, when you're dealing with the gang members on an ongoing basis, yeah, there is that perception you are in a war zone, you are a warrior, and you are the warrior for society.
This is a known gang hangout for CYS, better known as the Crazies.
Officer Joe Ryder is a 19-year veteran of the LAPD. He patrols the city's Northeast Division, a racially mixed and multicultural area that encompasses Silver Lake, Echo Park, and Eagle Rock.
Let me see your hands.
Officer Ryder says the Rodney King beating has shaken the department's 8,300 officers unlike any other event he can remember during his tenure.
You feel as though you are under a microscope, a lot more than you ever were before. This department specifically, nationally, is under a microscope. We understand that. This department understands that. These police officers understand that. But that's a tremendous amount of pressure being placed on these field officers.
A similar atmosphere prevails at the nearby Rampart Division, where Officer Sylvia Ruiz patrols the bustling streets surrounding MacArthur Park. Virtually every day she is reminded of the Rodney King incident.
Out in the field, we've got people that come up to us and ask us questions about how we feel about it. They give us their response of how they feel if it was wrong, and it was wrong, it was excessive force, and it only makes it harder for us to do our job. I may be a little bit more cautious in your actions. You might not want to react too soon, but if something needs to be done, you just do it.
Officer Ruiz has spent most of her 3-year career working in the Rampart Division. Some 300,000 people are packed within its 8 square miles.
All right, guys, what you gotta do, grab your stuff, anything that belongs to you, and start walking.
The crime rate is the highest in the city's 18 divisions. Last year, there were 118 homicides here. Drugs, robbery, and assault plague the area, while a growing homeless population also keeps police busy.
All right, let's stand up, get your things, and let's go. Rampart is considered a dangerous area for police officers because of the amount of people in the area. We have so many gang members and just different illegal drug selling, illegal card vending. People know of this area, so they come down here if they need to purchase something that's illegal. So there's a lot of bad guys coming into the area, and a lot of bad guys that live in the area. 2FB46 code for Lafayette suspect in custody. When I'm getting dressed and I put my bulletproof vest on, I think that's the time when I mostly think about, what can happen, and the reason I'm wearing the vest is to protect me if something should happen, if I should get shot.
Let's just walk down here, see what we got out here on the street. As you can see, someone took out a window here.
Because of the endless array of criminal and social problems confronting cops, many feel like they work in enemy territory.
You do look at yourself as though you're in a war zone, and when you have to deal with certain situations in that environment, are you perceived as the bad guy? You bet you are. There's a very negative type of feedback a lot that goes on, and there is that perceived us versus them. It's an ongoing thing. It's us versus them versus us, and it does exist.
The air unit is over the pursuit. Air unit, their location?
How we looking? Good.
There are certain radio calls that really get the adrenaline pumping. Are your hands a little wet? Are you a little clammy? Are you getting prepared for a tactical situation? Sure, there are radio calls out there that still exist to get the adrenaline going. But going through all the experiences out here in the field, no, I wouldn't say I'm scared. In retrospect, after the fact, yeah, sure. When I'm dealt with PCP suspects and they picked me up off the floor and threw me against the wall and stuff, was I scared? You bet I was scared. There are certain situations that can become very frightening and scary to you, because we're all human beings and we all deal with a very human emotion of fright, and it does exist out here.
There could be a hit up here now.
To cope with the stress and anxiety associated with police work, Officer Ryder participates in a number of outside activities while off duty.
I keep in shape, running in the morning and then playing baseball on certain days, and so I keep active. And I really think that's a very important thing, to really cause you not to get job burnout, is to keep active on a physical nature, and because if you're physically fit, you're going to be mentally fit. The guys that aren't mentally fit or physically fit do go through a job burnout.
Does he speak English? Does he speak English?
Job burnout can also result from sheer frustration. Many times police officers often find themselves balancing social work with law enforcement.
No, just pick the whole thing up so we can move it.
Officers also complain that the criminal justice system is too lenient. They say it makes their job even more difficult.
My main headaches is that of the judicial system, when we arrest someone for, say, narcotics, and within a week they're back out on the street again and they're only on probation, or maybe they only did a couple months in jail. And we're not the judge, but all we can do is enforce what's necessary and just continue working on that.
The law is there for us to enforce. Our job is to enforce the law, not to take it into our own hands, and not to be vigilantes out here, but to be very vigilant in our efforts as being law enforcement officers. Truly a difference. And I haven't seen any vigilante type of activity on this department or any other department. Do I think that it could be done? Possibility. Why? For the same reason people get frustrated at the job, people not being held accountable for their illegal acts and stuff like that. Frustration can build in a human being to where they could do something that they would totally regret. I mean, I would hope and think that after watching what occurred with Mr. King, that there are some people that totally regret what happened there.
Ok, ¿usted es la persona manejando el vehículo?
Sí.
Ok, tiene su licencia y la registración del vehículo, necesito.
Sí.
Officers Ryder and Ruiz are uncertain how long it will take to heal the rift between the cops and the community. But they do believe that the Rodney King beating is a watershed event for both Los Angeles and its police department.
As far as long-term on the reforms or the ratifications from the Rodney King incident, from what I can see is maybe just more awareness from the community, and also police officers knowing if they think about doing that something may come out of it.
There are certain areas that this department is going to address because of that specific incident. Is that good for this police department to make those reforms? You bet it is. And is it in the field of tactics? You bet. And are we going to learn assorted different tactics? You bet. I mean, is there going to be an accountability for all officers when they see wrongdoing out here to ensure that they make the appropriate notification? You bet there is. So did the Rodney King cause some changes, some dramatic changes in this department? Yes, it did. And is that for the good of the department? Yes, it is.
There's the Board of Police Commissioners, a 5-member panel of civilians appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the city council. The part-time commissioners actually head the police department, setting policies administered by the department head, the chief. Rarely has a commission actively opposed a chief of police.
I move to instruct the city attorney to act on behalf of the city in the anticipated lawsuit of Chief Gates by entering into a settlement agreement.
There's the 15-member Los Angeles City Council. It stepped into the fray April 5th, asserting its authority by voting to countermand the police commission's decision to suspend the chief.
Today I met with Police Chief Daryl Gates. At that meeting, I called upon Chief Gates to resign as Chief of Police.
There's Mayor Tom Bradley, never an ally of Police Chief Daryl Gates, but rarely confrontational. Bradley was under intense pressure to call for Gates' resignation, which he did 1 month after the King beating.
If you really feel confident in what you're doing and you believe in what you're doing, you fight.
There's Daryl Gates, for 13 years LA's police chief. Although Gates has been criticized for his sometimes insensitive remarks about minorities, many applaud the chief as a tough crime fighter. There are the constituencies that the major players in this controversy must answer to. There are activists in neighborhood groups, communities and businesses who are fearful of crime, support the police, and expect officials to do the same thing. And there are activists in minority communities and civil rights groups. They argue the police need to be brought under control. And in a city where non-whites are now the majority, critics who accuse the police of misconduct and racism carry increasing clout.
An examination into this tragic affair would not be complete without the input of the community and of its citizens.
Lawyer Melanie Lomax personifies the new political reality. She's a longtime critic of the LAPD. Now, as a vice president of the police commission, she helps oversee the department she used to sue.
I used to be a lawyer for the NAACP, and over a period of 5 years in the mid-'80s, when I was associated with that organization, I religiously received complaints of police brutality. And I think that in the last few years in particular, there has been a lot of incidents involving black and Hispanic men in their cars at night, which has convinced me that they are in fact, singled out for a special form of treatment in police surveillance, and that they're stopped probably at ratios of 10 to 1.
The fact that critics now serve on the commission that runs the LAPD is a shift in policy. In the past, a mayoral appointment to the police commission was not considered a mandate to shake things up. It was more a plum for the politically well-connected.
Why were you appointed to the police commission?
Well, I helped Tom Bradley in his mayor's race in 1973.
Salvador Montenegro served on the police commission from 1973 to 1979. Over time, he became more of a champion of the LAPD than an overseer.
I came leaning left, and then I picked up some right. I think I ended up in the middle.
What was there about what you were doing that changed your mind, that pushed you to the middle?
Well, midnight watches and daytime watches of the police, they would reveal to me their problems, lack of manpower. I heard them pleading for more policemen, couldn't keep up with the crime problem of the city. And in turn, I would present their pleas to the commission and try to relay them to the mayor's office.
Critics charge that the police commission has been too cozy with the police department. The commission is staffed by police personnel. It meets once a week, always at police headquarters. Michael Zinzin says the commission has failed to provide meaningful oversight of the LAPD. Zinzin heads the 15-year-old Coalition Against Police Abuse, or COPPA.
We have struggled with the police commission since COPPA's inception. They have acted as a rubber stamp for many, many years. They have not utilized what little power they have, and they have not really attempted to increase that power.
How did you, the police commission at the time, deal with allegations of racism in the police department?
We didn't have any blunt response to racism, although I know very well that it does exist.
How did you deal with allegations at the time of excessive force by police officers, you, the police commission?
Well, during my time, we had very few excessive forces come to the police commission.
For city officials who deal with law enforcement, police accountability takes a back seat to concern about LA's immense crime problem. And even while complaints about alleged police misconduct persist, the loudest voices belong to people calling for more police protection.
Hi, how you doing?
Around the city, neighborhood organizations welcome the police. Recently, a police support group, the Southwest Sweethearts, hosted a backyard party for police officers newly assigned to the LAPD's Southwest Division. Catherine Williams said she wanted to show her appreciation.
Well, there have been criticism. Some people will never understand the police department. But I ask you, who do they call when they're in trouble? Call the police.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a two-way street. The community needs the police need the community.
Do you think there are more people in the community who fear crime and want the police to respond than there are people who want to make big changes in the police department?
That's right.
You think so?
We had 16 homicides this weekend. Who did they call? Drive-by shootings. Who came to the aid? Paramedics in the police department. So that's the only thing. We need each other. And we have to have love.
That message is not lost on politicians aiming to show voters they're tough on crime. The issue their pollsters tell them is voters' #1 concern. Councilman Hal Burnson, for example, currently running for re-election in the San Fernando Valley, touts his endorsement by the police union.
It's very important, and I happen to have it, and I'm very happy to have it. But it is important because people are very concerned about crime. And generally, this community does support the police department. They have a very, very strong bond with the police department and with the chief.
So does the City Council. In the past, Burnson and his colleagues have given superior ratings to Police Chief Gates for his job performance. In the wake of the Rodney King beating, only 3 of the 15 council members voted to go along with the Police Commission's decision to suspend Gates, and only 1, Michael Wu, called for his resignation and publicly confronted the chief.
And I heard you say that we, meaning the council or the public, need to support the department if we want to maintain those services. I want to know, did you mean that as a threat? In other words, that if I or other members of the council are going to be criticizing you or the department, are you saying that you will withhold support of these neighborhood or street services to fight crime in our districts?
That is the most insulting thing I have heard on this council floor in all the time I've been here, and I've been here a lot longer than you've been alive. Absolutely not.
His reaction really overwhelmed me. I didn't think he was going to react the way he did.
Wu would like to see a more assertive police commission.
In the past, the police commission has not been as independent, has not been as aggressive as I believe it should have been, looking at past cases of alleged brutality, holding the chief accountable for some of the comments he's made about Hispanics being lazy or about black people not being normal or other kinds of references that I think were not appropriate for a chief of police. The commission now has new members on it. 4 out of the 5 members are now relatively newly appointed. So I believe it's important to support the police commission as the main voice for civilian policy setting over the police department.
For now, one battle over who sets policy is being waged in court. The chief contends the police commission had no cause to suspend him. The council says the commission overstepped its authority. And the commission and the mayor complain the council's trying to undermine the commission.
The police commission's role
At the same time, an independent commission headed by Warren Christopher is conducting its own review of police policies. But in the final analysis, the central issue of who controls the police is unlikely to be settled by an independent commission or by a judge. Nor will it be resolved by the photogenic truce between Bradley and Gates. Not since the 30s has this city been so polarized over police practices. But today there's a new political reality reflected in LA's changing demographics. Now police critics, notably those in minority communities, have a stronger than ever power base. That has set the stage for a major political confrontation over the issue of policing the police.